While people connect, go over the notices. So you know this session will be recorded. Please type your name, email, and affiliation on the chat so we can get back to you. If you're not gonna speak, please keep your microphone muted. Otherwise we get a lot of noise, background noise. We will have 3 Q&A sessions, one after each project, and then we'll open up to so everybody can have a Q&A session with everybody. So let's move to the next slide. And welcome again, everybody. Greetings from wherever you are coming. This is a Peace Engineering Echo event. And there's a definition of peace engineering that came out of the 2018 First Global Peace Engineering Conference, organized by IFES, GDC, and the University of New Mexico and ISTEC. Please, next slide, please. This is a follow-up to talk about financing projects. It's very important for people to learn how to identify funding opportunities and look at what is required to get funding. Regardless of it, independent of any agency, you will have to come up with a very cohesive and detailed business plan or project plan that can be presented to the funders. So this is one of many events that we will organize on financing. Next slide, please. Today we will be presenting 2 projects. These 2 projects have been contextualized based on an original idea that came from the African Engineering Deans Council. And based on those 2, there actually were 3 projects, 2 of them merged into 1. And now we have 2 projects that have been contextualized. The idea is to come up with a template that can, based on these projects, that can be replicated throughout not only Africa, but other parts of the world too. Next slide, please. So this is the format. We will have 12 minutes, a TED Talk by the first project. Then we'll open up for Q&A with Ric. Ric is our contact person to humanitarian funding opportunity. Then once we're done with that, we're going to move to the second project. Again, a TED Talk on about 12 minutes. Then we'll open up with specific questions related to that second project. Once that is done, we will open up to a Q&A session for all. Next slide, please. So we're going to start with the first project. The lead on this project is Billy Jivetti from Kenya, and he has invited 3 other people to help him present this project. Again, this project is contextualized to Western Kenya. Billy.
Thank you, Ramiro. Good morning, Ric and everybody else. Good evening. I think others are having an evening. So like Ramiro said, this project has been contextualized from the global, when we had a few weeks ago. So I'm basically going to give the context of the project from Western Kenya. We have a health center, and we are looking at the requisite infrastructure. For the sake of our geography, that is the site, Western Kenya, tip of Western Kenya there. That's the map of Africa, just to let you know where we exist. So the other thing is just a little bit about how we ended up here, is that my mother was a community health worker over the years, and she used to see the problems, the community was going through. And in 1969, she had a dream for a health center. And then in 2002 is when I came to the US, and the community sent me with those wishes. It wasn't until 2009 when I began, talking about the problem. I called it a burning bush moment. I was at the University of Missouri. Thankfully, in that burning bush moment, we met a world traveler who gave us some seed capital. And in 2011, we broke the ground. So we are in the county of West Vihiga in Western Kenya. Kenya has the national government and a number of counties. The immediate community that we are situated in has about 25,000 subsistence farmers. There is an acute shortage of basic health services with a mortality rate of about 33%, mainly from childhood malaria, infant mortality, and maternal or mortality during childbirth. Other than that, we also have a number of waterborne diseases, including typhoid, dysentery. Snakes also bite, dog bites, and others too. So here is the man who inspired me also. The man on the left of the screen lost 3 children successively in a span of 9 months. I took this picture in June. A few months in October, this child died from the same disease, malaria. This man is one of the few who survived a snake bite on his hand when he was doing manual work. And then we do have a lot of motorcycle accidents, wounds from secondary infections, and then emergency transportation. Sometimes we fall to the very basics. This man was also an inspiration. A spider bit him when he was looking after his animals in the forest around. We were doing a community health campaign with him. I met him in December of that year when he had just begun construction. He had lost his arm because of the venom. And then a few weeks later, he died because he didn't have good medication because of the toxins. And this is sometimes we have a very old truck at our home that we also use to service the community. It plays like, the ambulance of the community in very many respects. So in terms of the needs of the community, we tend to lack timely diagnosis and prevention. A lot of the things we are undergoing, you find that many people in our community are dying from things they don't even know aware of. And in this era of COVID, that is going to exacerbate the situation. And so most of this can be preventable. However, because of the poverty, the rugged terrain, the poor infrastructure, and the distances in between the villages, they also tend to exacerbate the issues we are facing. So traditional medicine, self-diagnosis, quack, doctors and or clinics right by medical practitioners who are retired tend to come into play. So our objectives is to provide primary healthcare services, very primary, and then referral services. There is an acute shortage of healthcare workers in the country. We also intend to facilitate a lot of education, training, and awareness campaign in the community. Also be an avenue for medical missions, cultural exchange, volunteers, research, clean water supply or wash programs, including energy access roads in the community. This project is also supposed to be a source of economic empowerment. We have adopted what we call an integrated healthcare model, community healthcare model, whereby we are not just providing healthcare alone, we are also trying to infuse it with economic empowerment so that the people can be able to afford healthcare at the facility. So these are the architectural renditions of the health center itself. They were developed by an engineers working for the United Nations. So the first floor is supposed to be first story is supposed to be for the clinicals, second story for the trainings, the third one is for the research and specialized treatment. So that is ground zero for us in 2010. And then we began taking the measurements. That is our engineer volunteered. Say it again.
1 minute.
Okay. So that's the engineer who was with us, took the measurements. We were able to bring electricity to the site. Did the groundbreaking ceremony, excavations, and all that. It was a community-wide event. And then as of now, this is where we are. We are just doing the external finishings outside before we go back to do the internal fittings also, so we can be able to begin the clinicals hopefully by the end of this year. So at this juncture, I do want to invite a few people who are going to help me talk about water access roads. Rossana, before that, let me just show you what we go through with terms of water, and then they can take over. So we have a cistern on the property that is pumping water up to the facility. We do have a conflict or a problem with the gold mine as well, also polluting the water immensely. The other thing that we do lack is also the access roads and infrastructure, but Rossana will talk about it here shortly. So we have had to invest significantly in improving the access roads to be able to make sure that delivery of bulky materials is taken to the site. That's what we call our bridge to nowhere. We cannot be able to use it, so we have to take the longer route to the place itself. So it's one of the infrastructure needs that has sprung up from this facility itself. So at this point, I do want to invite Bill to go back and talk about water, and then Rossana will come, and then Mitchell will finish it also.
Thank you, Billy, and good morning, Rick, and everyone else that's on the call. My name is Bill Horan. I retired in 2018 as president of Operation Blessing International. We're based in Virginia Beach and active in over 30 countries. And when I joined Operation Blessing in 2002, I found out in a hurry that the way that I could provide the greatest ROI, if you will, to our donors was through providing safe water, particularly in developing countries, and did that for some years. And then in 2009, I met Dr. Paul Farmer, who is involved in global medicine at Harvard and is the co-founder of Partners in Health, which is actually the face of public health in Haiti. And I met him before the earthquake, but when the earthquake happened in 2010, Dr. Farmer asked me if I could involve Operation Blessing in providing all of the water they needed for their emergency clinics, and then more importantly for the huge hospital that he had planned and has since built and opened. It's called University Hospital. It's the largest solar-powered hospital in the world, some 200,000 square feet, 300 beds. It's an amazing facility. And I personally directed the water all the way from drilling the 5 wells on the property to securing a donor that donated all of the sophisticated equipment for the filtration and disinfection of that water. And that was the largest hospital project I've personally been involved in, but I've been involved in 8 other hospital safe water projects in 4 different countries, and was invited to join this team to help provide guidance for the provision of safe water, not only for the hospital, but for the community in that catchment area. Thank you very much.
Rossana?
Rossana, you're muted.
Good morning, Rick. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody. So as some of you know, I'm former head of support services for UNOPS. I worked for UNOPS for over 25 years. UNOPS is in essence one of the UN entities of the UN system, and it's in essence the operational branch of the United Nations. It has 3 pillars. It conducts infrastructure projects, it does project management, and international procurement. And well, I was based in multiple countries in Asia, Africa, and in Haiti, in Sri Lanka after the tsunami, in which we supported the government in the rehabilitation of infrastructure. And we built multiple schools, roads, hospitals, maternity wards, social community centers, and the same in Haiti. After the earthquake, we collected all the debris, and we helped to reconstruct Haiti together with other UN entities and NGOs. So I know this project, as you all see, is an interdisciplinary line of expertise, which will require a lot of input from multiple experts for the infrastructure, for energy, telecommunications, and for procurement, of infrastructure, medical equipment, et cetera, for the health center. So UNOPS, what I'd like to, the importance would be to engage the services of UNOPS, because UNOPS offers turnkey projects. They do the procurement the procurement for all the construction. They engage the services of experts, and they do what it is, in essence, project management. So this would be a turnkey project in which also what I think is important to mention is the accountability component. UNOPS, what it does, it offers progress reports to all the stakeholders. After each milestone has been reached, it also provides the financial reports, periodic financial reports to all the stakeholders. So this is, UNOPS conducts every project with transparency and is always notifying all the stakeholders every step of the way of each project. So I think we had mentioned UNOPS before, so I'd just like to reiterate what UNOPS would do if this project would be, given to UNOPS to be able to offer a turnkey project. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Good to see you again, Rick. My name is Hillman Mitchell. I'm a cybersecurity consultant, but I'm a computer scientist with a humanitarian heart, and been involved in several operations worldwide. For this particular project, we'll be looking at helping to support the community health center with the infrastructures that are required to maintain the operations of not only the health center, but for the community. And so we'll be looking at the project as the services that are provided through the community health center. And then, as Rossana had indicated, there are civil construction projects that we'll need to be engaged in. We'll also need to have stable power. Even though we have some power coming to the community right now, it is not very stable. And so we need to maintain good operational parameters around power, telecommunications, and, as Bill had indicated, in the water sector. And so I'll be helping to provide guidance on some of the technical aspects and coordinating with the overall team to help with those support infrastructures. So again, I think that Billy has done a spectacular job of building this facility. He's engaged a large number of people in the past, and now we're looking at taking it to the next level so that we can really engage with providing services to the community. Thank you very much.
Billy, you're muted.
Yeah, so I do just want to make a few acknowledgements of the partnerships we have developed from last year when I became acquainted with this group. These are just some of the main ones as they're coming there, but I do want to acknowledge Zoe, Engineers Without Borders, was not here today, and then a number of scientists from the university in Kenya. Some are traveling, it's evening for them, and then we even have some from Malawi, and then the county in we are working in, and of course the UNM School of Engineering. But that's like all, you know, a list of the people who are come aboard this project that we intend to, we've been working with, and will be providing some form of oversight and advice as we go forward. Thank you.
Billy, do you want to show that last slide with all the people?
Yes.
We
Are you seeing
can see
it?
the slide.
Can you see it?
No.
Oh, I thought I had shared the slide, the screen. Let's see. Okay. Can you see it?
Now, yes.
Yes. So we have a lot of partnerships from all over the place, courtesy of this group. And here's just some of the people can be able to fit on the slide itself. I think most of the names are here, Ramiro.
Okay.
And Donna.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me close this session before we open the Q&A.
Right.
Saying that it's essential the partnership with IPGDC. Academia needs to be involved. We need community-based learning teaching. So academia is essential for the success of this project to empower the community. So I just want to close by saying that. And then we should open up for Q&A. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Billy, great project. Very heartfelt. I love hearing about committed people that are really out there trying to help and leave a legacy and change people's lives. So yes, this fits very much in with what we're trying to do with the Humanitarian Fund. A couple of quick questions. How much financing are you acquiring for this project?
Rick, let me put a disclaimer. I'm not an engineer, but until I started working with this group of engineers, then I learned, you know, some things. So all along, I've been like, you know, just sifting through. Our main engineer is based in South Sudan doing some of these projects. But I do have a team that we are working with that is supposed to make a site visit and advise us on, do a needs assessment on what exactly is still needed. And from an engineering perspective, because that is one of the deficiencies I've been facing. The people have been helping me would give me a small budget that we exhaust, and then we reach the end, we're not finished the task. But I have, like Ramiro said, a number of people in the academia in the local area were supposed to make a site visit and help me come up with a good, you know, estimate of how much is needed. But in just in terms of amount needed from an infrastructure standpoint, the access road is major, the bridge and the water supply, and then the building itself. Only the first story is about 50% complete. So that gives you an idea of where we are.
Okay. Let me just go back, just so everybody on the call, first of all, good morning, good evening. As the Australians would say, good day, it makes it easier. The minimum funding that they fund is typically working around is $150 million. Okay, so this project, I would look at this project and just rough guesstimate, I'd say, you know, maybe 10 million, 15 million would finalize it and outfit it with the proper equipment, et cetera. So my suggestion is going to be that we look at, Billy, you and your group funding or looking at doing 15, 20 of these facilities around Africa. So not just within your country, but you know, maybe a couple of 3 within Kenya, but then reaching out to other countries and getting them involved, sort of almost doing it like a cookie cutter. Here's what we've done, and we've taken it from breaking ground to conception to finishing it. And we know that here's our sort of overall costs, et cetera. And then take that and say, okay, so we want to replicate that in other countries. So then we can go back to the financiers and say, okay, here's a 200 or 300 or $400 million project. It's going to be done in phases. First phase is going to be Kenya. Part 1 of Kenya is almost complete. We need, 10 million to finish this one up, and then we're going to replicate that, and we're going to need 20 million over here, and just lay it out in a way, because then they know it's not, we're not asking them for 400 million up front. We're saying this is going to be done in phases. Here's our rollout schedule. Here's our drawdown schedule. Here's the government involvement. So we've had the government of Kenya step up and say, yes, we're prepared to support this, et cetera, et cetera. Because I think we need to grow this, even though I know your focus is on completing what your mother started, but take this and let's just look at it from a big picture. How do we impact millions of people versus thousands? Because with this team that you've assembled here, you've got the brain power to be able to do this. And with Rossana's help, I mean, they could step up and they could oversee all of these different countries and different projects. So I think we could we could take this thing and grow it. The other comment that I wanted to have is this: the funding group, they need some sort of a pro forma, some sort of a return. Now remember, now they have 2 ways. I don't know if I mentioned it last time, but they have 2 ways of funding now. It used to be they only funded when the government was involved and the government put up some sort of an asset. Now what they do is if a group is able to put up some money, like $1 million, they're able to then go out and then finance up to $50 million on that project. So finding somebody to put up $1 million for this project in Africa will not be hard. So there are multiple ways of funding it. So when we get them on the call with you guys, what they're going to want to talk to is they're going to want to talk to the key developer, which would be yourself, Billy, and then a key government contact, somebody high up in the government that will be able to say, yes, we're supporting this project. We understand, what they're trying to do, et cetera. So prior to that call, we're going to need to give them a letter of request saying, we're interested in finding out more about your different financing opportunities. We're already talking to these main politicians or the heads of the government in Kenya. Okay, and so that's one document. Then a summary of the project like you've done here, and you can be a deck and a written business plan, which is easy to do. And then some sort of a pro forma saying, okay, the cost of this project in Kenya, this first project is going to be, for argument's sake, $20 million. Of that $20 million, when this is completed, we anticipate that hospital or that facility generating this sort of amount of revenue. Because depending on the financing that they choose to give you, there will be some ownership in the hospital from their side, which can be recaptured by yourself over time. But I really want to stay within their business model. They are so busy. They are closing 200 different projects at the moment. So they are stretched so thin. So what used to we think would take 6 to 8 weeks is now taking 3 to 4 months. So the sooner we get this project on the table for them, and the sooner we get their commitment to doing something with us, and then the conversation, then we get into this sort of the queue for funding. Does that make sense?
And Rick, this is Hillman. If I could, Billy has done an excellent job, not only of getting the resources to build the building, but he developed a business plan of a complete pro forma, but it was developed 10 years ago. And part of what we're doing right now is we're going through and we're updating that with current costs and then looking at the broader infrastructure that is required to facilitate operations. And just as you had mentioned, we were looking at developing a template where the primary project is the healthcare clinic, and then we have secondary projects that support that clinic and support the community. And so just as you had indicated, that is the direction Billy was headed. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that. He's done a tremendous amount of work, and we mostly just wanted to get some input from you, and this has been incredibly valuable to help.
Okay, and exactly what you guys were talking about as far as the infrastructure, the roads, the bridges, bringing the power in, setting up an education facility, that's how we want to make this thing so impacting, because remember, these guys are humanitarians and they got tons of money and they just want to leave a legacy. So if they can say, look, we're not only impacting the health, but now we're doing education, we're doing infrastructure, we're doing power, we're doing clean water, we're helping change lifestyles, if you will. So people aren't having to survive from spider bites. We've got the proper vaccines, we've got the proper things for the different diseases, and we're creating an education research facility that'll help take this further. So that's the picture that I really want to portray for these guys. And you guys, you got the infrastructure support from Billy and everybody else that can do this. So let's make it as big as we can. Sorry.
Rick, can you quickly explain how the loan works, the 60% forgiveness, the 40% zero interest, the non-debt part, which is very important for the countries?
Yeah, okay, well, as I said, there's two different aspects to this. When they first came out, my contact, when they first came out, they said, we have $100 billion and this is the way we have to do it, which was, we'll fund 100% of it. When the project, once we sign off on it, we'll fund 100% of it and we will own 40%. You will get 60% gift of whatever the cost is, and that's your equity in it. We own 40%, but you can buy that 40% with no interest and spread it out over whatever period of time you want, 20 years or whatever it happened to be. So they don't want to necessarily own equity, but they want to have something that sort of secures their position. My feeling is, let them own the 40% equity, because now you have a financing partner for every other project you ever want to do. Okay, once we do one of these, I will promise you they'll fund every other deal. So the key is to get them in bed with us, commit them, and then once they've done that, but again, there's no cost, there's no upfront money. Now that's on the original program. The second program, which they call DERP, Developing Economic Resurrection Programs. And that one is, they want somebody to put up $1 million, and they will take that $1 million from a whole bunch of other millions of dollars put together and leverage that into hundreds of millions of dollars. Then they will go fund every one of those projects up to $50 million. Okay, so whether the government puts up $1 million or whether we find an investor or humanitarian who wants to put up $1 million, whatever. And then that program, at the end of that, there's still some sort of an ownership position, but that's dependent upon how much the investors want to be involved. Okay, but again, once we get them to understand the project, to see the letter of request, understand the project from the big scope and the rollout plan, then they'll say yes. And then we do a phone call with the funder, Billy, yourself, and probably a government official with the funder directly, not many people, but that, because they want to know that the government's involved and they want to get a real good feel for you and what you guys have done. And then they'll send a letter of intent, a funding letter to you that says, here's how much we're going to fund. And then you have to provide them with the costs, the rollout schedule. Rossana will be able to help you with a lot with that. But that's really the project. So get all of our documentation together first. Get it to me. I will present it to them. I'll sell the heck out of it, get them on board. Then we'll set up a phone call with them. And then once we have that phone call, we're up and running.
Thank you. We're exceeding the time limit. I want to move on to the second project, Affordable and Reliable Power Communication Device for Continuous Online Learning for African Students. Will be presented by Professor Christian Bolu. Christian, please go ahead.
Okay, my name is Professor Christian Bolu. I have with me right in this meeting, we have the various professors across Africa who are here. We have Professor Tagwa, we have Professor Biazi, we have Professor Dada, we have Professor Giwa, we have Professor Dr. Babatunde Adeyemo from South Africa. There is a person from Libya, that's also Aisha. We have Professor Falade from Nigeria. So we're going to be talking about our project is affordable and reliable power and communication device for continuous learning for African students. Okay, here are the lead collaborators. We have Claude Domfang from Cameroon, Professor Clotilde from Benin, Professor Dada from Nigeria, Professor Cosmas Koriakos Idataba Awoyemi from South Africa and Nigeria. We have Professor Teresa Bandwaya from Malawi, Professor Aisha from Libya, Associate Professor Tagwa Musa from Sudan. Everyone is an African. All of them are living in Africa, and they have the African experience. Then there are other professors, close to about 30 of them, that are involved in this. But these are the lead professors. Now, the motivation for this was that during the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown, we found that almost all African universities, students were not learning. And so the African Engineering Deans Council then requested that, can we know why they are not studying? So we carried out a survey, more than 6,000 respondents, and it's an ongoing one now that is in English, in French, in Portuguese, and in Arabic. You know, in Africa, we have four main languages that are spoken: English, French, Portuguese, and Arabic in the north. So from this questionnaire, we found out that the reason why they were not studying was that they don't have power, regular power, and even when they have it, the internet is very poor. And so the questionnaire was to find out, what do they think we should do? And interestingly, what they said, well, if you can give us a portable power that is renewable without fossil fuel, and combined with the internet that they can carry in their school bag, and less than $100, that will solve the problem. So we took that was the motivation. So based on that, the African engineers, particularly the deans, who are the chief executives of their engineering colleges and faculties, said, okay, let's tackle this problem head on. In fact, I think Ramiro had a problem with internet today. It's interesting that even in America, we have the same problem. The goal was to produce this with an objective to produce one that is less than $100. And most importantly, to engage Africans living in Africa to work and solve their problems, not outsiders. So even though we have a multicultural continent, a multilingual continent, and gender sensitivity is not there, women are not taken so seriously, we said we're going to work and overcome all this. And this is the beauty of this collaboration. It's one of the first times we're doing this kind of thing. The problem is identified by Africans, and it's going to be solved by Africans, and using whatever human resources that we have. Now, first of all, was to determine it's going to be a business. Even though you're asking for funding, it must be a business. So it's not something that you do and for charity. We tried, first of all, how do we know the number of the customers? Who are going to be our customers? We started with engineering because it was the deans of engineering who were, we have some influence over them, and engineers normally use power more than many other people. Like in their laptops, most are they use for analysis of many things that require a lot of power. And so we said, let's work with engineers, it's the most critical, and then thereafter we can look at the others. So we looked at we had a study that African Engineering Deans Council did in 2017 to determine the number of universities, active universities in Africa. We have about, at that time, there's about 473. Today it's about 550. And we also identify the number of programs like civil, electrical, mechanical, and so on. There are altogether, if you aggregate all of them, or close to about 2,500 programs. So using that, that's how we use to forecast what will be the likely customer base that we're going to have, particularly the captive ones. And we're also going to group, I will talk about this later, we're going to group universities in clusters for the research. Our finding was this: there are over 470 universities of HEIs. They are offering over 2,500 engineering programs. we estimate that there are about 120,000 to 200,000 engineering students in Africa. If we put in the polytechnic students, then we're talking about 500,000 students. And then if you put in the whole universities, it's about 20 to 25 times that. So we're talking about 10 million people. And there are a lot of students in Africa, even though it's not as large as India or China. And so the captive market is close to about 2 to 3 million devices annually, and resulting to a business of minimum $200 million. It could go. I mean, it could go to much more than that when we took a very conservative number. Now we are going to the purpose of this is that this is going to be manufactured by the universities using the students to make sure that they learn in doing this, and to bring down, of course, the cost. The student will be working, getting about 40 to 160 hours monthly, about $300 to $500. $500 may be very little in America. The student getting $500 in Nigeria or some other places is a huge amount of money. It could pay a lot of the bills that they have, particularly the devices we are developing. The time will count for their work experience, and we are also having industry partners we're bringing in. We have people like Total, some of the multinational companies like Total, General Electrics. We have in Nigeria, for instance, we are speaking with some of them, and they're helping in energy solutions. And I think when we bring this kind of project, they also come in to part fund this. Now we have a lot of expected impact on the particularly the students. Africa, 70% of Africans are below 19. It's a very young population. And if you catch the young people, then the amount of unrest that you have, the amount of damages you have will be curtailed, because that is the cream, that is the bulk, is the greater percentage of Africa. So it will reduce disruption in academic calendar, because we'll be using, it will be having a resilient teaching. We're going to enhance, it will go to enhance industry academia partnership engagement. For instance, next week, I'll be going to my university is doing an industry visit online, even though there's a pandemic. Capacity building, some of the students will learn how to program, how to develop businesses. It will also increase regional industry collaboration and also inter-university collaboration, which has been very, very difficult in Africa. We collaborate more with Europe and America than collaborating with ourselves in Africa. That is very crucial for development. There are the engineers, we have done a lot of thinking. There are a lot of things we're going to do. The key 8 activities will be solar panel optimization, so that you will be able to carry this device inside the school bag. That's a requirement from the students. They have to bring it to the school, and if they're in the bush or in a remote location, they can put it out, they have power, they have internet, and they can then go ahead and study. The battery, it has a battery storage. The internet connectivity, we have going to be very good, so that better than what you get from the phones. There's going to be firmware for performance measurement and so on with artificial intelligence, and there'll be extensive testing and validation across Africa. Development prototype, what we plan to do is that we're going to group universities in 1 to 5 clusters. Some countries have 50 universities, some have just 1, some have 3. Those ones, we try to group them in 5, and we develop a prototype cluster, a prototype for them. Each one will cost about $100,000. And if we take the 54 countries, we're looking at about $11 million. That is just to produce the prototypes. If we expand this to manufacturing base, it is close to $500 million requirement. So it's a huge thing. And but however, we're going to do it in 3 phases. We're going to have it in 3 phases where the short term, medium term, and the long term. This is the costing, how we determine the cost per unit, cluster unit, personnel costs, equipment, consumables, data collections, report writing, and so on. Now, the first short term, we'll be looking at 10 countries. And these 10 countries, all of them, they are here. They are here in this meeting. And so they already know we're ready to go. We're going to do in Kenya, Malawi, Sudan, Uganda, East Africa, Libya in North Africa, South Africa and South Africa, Benin, Ghana, Nigeria, and West Africa. And we are targeting the engineering students alone now because we have some kind of control. The deans have some kind of influence on them, and we can get good feedbacks, and they'll be involved. And then in the medium term, we'll be looking at the other engineering universities. Then in the long term, we're looking at all the engineering universities, all the students in all the universities in Africa. To manage the funds, we will be, IFA's office in the USA will be receiving whatever funds we're going to receive. And then they will work with the executives of the African Engineering Deans Council and African Engineering Education Association executives to see how it is.
Yeah, this is where he was before we had the internet challenge. So we are proposing that IFA's office in the USA will receive the funding, and then the authorization for disbursements will be done in collaboration or in collaboration with the executives of AEDC, African Engineering Deans Council, and AEEA, African Engineering Education Association. Please, next slide. Okay. Now, significance of the project. There will be, in Africa, we have actually challenge of both electric power stability and internet connectivity. Apart from the major cities, you find out that many of the towns and villages do not have stable power supply. So except when the students are on campus, it becomes difficult for them to learn online. So if this device is manufactured and made available for students to purchase at such affordable prices or price, it will solve a lot of problems or challenges in the training of engineering students and even for other students in the university system. So that whether there is pandemic or no pandemic, they can learn from their houses. They can learn from wherever they are. Once they are sure that there is constant power availability to run their laptops, to run their handsets, their Android or mobile handsets. Then the project will bring together over 300 engineers, technologists, and technicians from the entire African continent working on an identified engineering problem. Like we have said, right here in this meeting, we have representation from the 5 sub-regions of Africa. North Africa is represented, Central Africa is represented, East Africa is represented, Southern Africa is represented, and then West Africa is represented. So this will be a project that will help the various engineering teams coming together to work on something that is a common challenge across the continent. Please, next slide.
That's the end.
Okay. Oh, you're back.
Yeah, I'm back, Edo. That's the Africa experience.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You can see how we solve the problem now.
That's part of what the project want to solve.
That's what the project will solve.
Thank you, Professor. That was a good demonstration of the lack
of the problem,
right, the unreliability of the internet. Thank you so much. This is a passionate project. This has it can unite the whole continent. It just has tremendous potential, and it touches economic development, sustainability, social impact, training of the people, of investing in the future of leaders and global citizens. So Thank you so much. So I'm going to open up now for Rick.
Yeah, again, I want to comment just on both presentations. A lot of thought, a lot of passion, a lot of good work has been put into this. So I really appreciate that. And thanks for sharing that with me. On this one specifically, I look at this and I go, yes, you're focused right now on the tip of the iceberg, saying we're going to focus on the engineering students because that's our passion, but you can reach out to anybody who wants to learn. And what I looked at this is if the engineering students develop this is going to be a real good feather in their cap. They'll be able to go out and you can market this to families right across Africa. Exactly. Because it's not restricted to students. This is going to provide power, storage, and everything. And exactly, guys, you can create an export product that can help generate revenue from other countries because there's 1,000 other countries that need this as well. And once they see that you've done this collectively and through a collaboration with the students and supporting the students and work experience and creating revenue, they're going to look at that. And that's a model that can be put into tons of other countries. So I really commend you guys for thinking this through. And I look at this, and as you said, it's $200, $300, $400 million is the potential revenue that can be generated, but the impact on millions of people is huge. So Billy, your project is really good and we want to expand it. This one is really good and you've already thought through what you can do from the expansion point of view. So I really commend you on that. So again, I go back to, this is a good presentation. I loved your passion. So when you get on with the funders, that will be huge. But again, I go back to the basic process for them is let's get a letter of request. So it's you guys and all of the engineers are backing this, but also who have you talked within the governments to make sure the governments understand how to sort of align themselves with you. So that's a letter of request, then a deck like you've done, and then a business plan that shows a pro forma. We're going to sell these things. Initially, the cost of development is this, and I would take your cost structure that you've got out there, showing whatever it is, 10, 11 million dollars. I would take that and I would suggest that you want to do that in a much grander scheme. Go into, here's what it's going to cost us to do manufacturing. We're not only going to develop and run and create the pilots, but we're going to manufacture these things. So we're going to hire a ton of people. The cost of the buildings are going to be X. The cost of the manufacturing is going to be X. So if this is a $500 million project, then present it like that. Because ask for more and let them come back and say, okay, here's what we'll fund you for. Okay.
Thank you.
So I go back to both parties. Put together your documentation. You don't have to spend a ton of time. You've done all the hard work now. Let's just summarize it in a good written form. Create a simple spreadsheet for a pro forma saying, here's what it is. Here's what we think we're going to generate from the healthcare centers and the education, and here's what we're going to generate from the power packs and the online education, and then take it out and build it out into, and I'll help you build that out into a really good visual and size wise. So we can go to these guys and say, okay, for the health side, we're going to have 6 projects of 50 million to start. And then over on the other side, this is going to be a $500 million project, including full engineering development, manufacturing, exporting, and here's our pro forma. So a little bit more work needs to be done, but let's start putting them in. So once you finish one, and please don't do this. Please don't think I have to tweak it and tweak it and tweak it. What I'd like you to do is come up with a rough draft, send it to me. I will throw some comments in it. You guys can add to it, and we should be able to get this done in the next week or two, and then get it into the pipeline, because I want to get it in sooner than later, because to get them on a call is okay. There's a time difference here. The key funding contacts is in the same time zone as Romero. So, to get them on a call at, 6 or 7 in the morning is not an issue for them to make it convenient for you guys in Africa, but we need to get them the documentation, to get them to the call, and then we can close them.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yes.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you so much. That's wonderful.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, everybody. I think this was a excellent collaborative, and I think we still have steps to take, but it's moving in the right direction. Rick, thank you for your coaching, and we will rely on you for your coaching because you know we're just a bunch of engineers.
Well, no, it's you know, everybody said it. It's a collaboration. We want to help everybody, and you know, it's all about reaching out. And I love what you guys are doing, Romero, from gathering, you know, this brain power and pulling it together for helping people. So, you know, great on you guys. And this is a mission I'd love to be involved in. So anything I can do to help, I will.
Yeah, I think Peace Engineering Echo is
Thank
something
you
that
very
is
much.
growing, and it's thanks to you guys. So you're part of this Peace Engineering Echo network. So I want to thank you, all of you, for collaborating and believing and making a difference and having fun, right?
Yep, that's for
So
sure.
thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Ramiru. Thank you, Harris. Well, it was a great meeting and it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Biazi. Good seeing you again.
Yeah.
Thank you, man.
Excellent.
So the homework for everybody is to stay safe. Okay. That's the
Yeah,
homework.
that is important.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. Thank
Thanks,
you
guys.
so much. Rick, thank you.
Thank you.
Hillman,
Thank
Rossana,
you.
Billy, Bill, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That one,
Thank you,
thank you, how are you?
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Gender
Hello,
sensitive.
Dr. Harmony. How are you?
yeah, well done, everybody.
Chagwa, we
Well
didn't hear you.
done.
Yeah, of course I'm here, of course.
Chaco is here, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hans. Thank you, Tawa. Thanks, everybody. What a team we have.
Thank you, Ramiro.
Thank you,
Good
Billy.
job.
All right.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Stay safe.
Okay.